Hi there, welcome to another episode of Harrison Hobby. Today we are going to be looking at the Dell Inspiron 5310. So this laptop here was originally purchased for travel. Again, I've been trying to find the ultimate travel laptop for quite a while. Since I've been doing this channel, I think I started with the Dell Inspiron 13 2-in-1 that was running a 7th gen i3, and then I tried out the HP Folio, the leather wrap laptop with the 10th gen Intel i7 Y series ultra low power processor, and that computer was running into issues with thermal throttle because it was passively cooled. And so I found this Inspiron here, and to be honest, it's not even available on the Dell website as of the time of this filming, or the time that I ordered it many months ago. I found it on Amazon and figured it was worth a shot. So basically this has a lot of features, and I'm going to be reading off my cheat sheet here because I do want to get into the specs, and these aren't as fresh in my head as they once were. Basically, this is a 13-inch form factor for travel, and kind of that holy grail laptop of what I've been wanting has been a 13-inch form factor, USB-C rechargeable, which is one of the most important things since a lot of the time there's not power available at an airport, for example, or you're going to be in an off-site, maybe in a building that doesn't have power yet. And so being able to charge it from a power bank and use your phone as a hotspot is kind of a major thing for me. Also, I wanted it ultralight. I don't want to feel it in a backpack. I also wanted to have dedicated NVIDIA graphics. So again, sometimes I'm on the road for a week, 2 weeks at a time, being able to kind of decompress in the evening, play some video games, or even sometimes just to kill time, I'll do SolidWorks or some solid modeling just for fun, or editing these videos. So I wanted, the ability to have CUDA. I also wanted an i7 processor and touchscreen, which this one does not have a touchscreen, which is unfortunate. I wanted a 2-in-1. Again, this is not. I guess out of those kind of 7 classifications, more or less, I hit 5 of the boxes. So I would say 5 out of 7 isn't necessarily bad. So basically, I guess if you're looking for this laptop and you can't find it, there's 2 models, right? There is this one here, the Dell Inspiron 5310, and that's the same as the Vostro 5310. The main difference between them is this one here comes with 16 gigs of DDR6, DDR5? I think it's DDR5, but it's the onboard, the LPDDR RAM. Versus the Vostro that comes with 8 gigs. There's a few cosmetic differences also. The Vostro has black keyboard deck or black keyboard keys, and then the side profile here, it has a little bit different profile than this one. So some slight details, but I think for all intents and purposes they're identical. And then the other piece to look at here is if you type in 5310, just as kind of the base search, that is a Latitude model number also. And so that one is prolific on the internet, right? You can find tons of reviews, tons of everything on that. This one here is pretty obscure. Even if you go into Dell's website and you type in Inspiron 5310, it'll take you to the Latitude 5310 listing. So effectively what we have here is maybe an XPS 13 killer. So we'll get into that in a little bit. It does have some glaring issues which make it hard to recommend, but it's got a lot of redeeming qualities too. So we'll dive into that. So some hard specs on the thing. It comes in at 1.25 kilograms, which is 2.7 pounds. Normally, being in North America here, I'd probably start with 2.7 pounds and give you metric, but anyhow. So this is a quad HD display, so you're at 2560 by 1600, so it's great for every day. However, if you're going to game, putting a game at 1080 on this thing looks like trash. So you're kind of stuck at quad HD or nothing. And then lastly, it's got 300 nits advertised brightness. It has 16 gigabytes DDR4X RAM. And then if you look at what it's running at 4267 megahertz. So pretty fast. It has an i7 11370H. So this thing has, the H processor in these is kind of weird, in that normally H would be your 45 watt gaming processors. This is weirder that, this is running 28 to 35. So it's, a normal Ultrabook G7 equipped processor like you'd find in the XPS or any of the non-H version is going to be running around 12 to 28 watts. This clocks in here theoretically at 28 to 35 watts. So again, you're not at the 45 watt gaming laptop H series, but for a thin and light, that is a lot of wattage. So I guess whenever we look into this, hardware info is giving us the P1, so power in setting 1 at 28 watts, and P2 up to 60. So the 60 will be your turbo boost. Again, 60 watt on something this small is crazy. If you're looking for something like, you know, the XPS with the 12th gen, you're going to be at 1185 G7. So that is going to be the XPS 3910, which is around 1500. And that gets, we'll call it 11,000 in our pass mark score. This one, the i7-11370H, which is found in this laptop here, runs about 12,700 on pass mark, which is 13% faster. So it's got the same 96 cores Virus Xe graphics, which is kind of irrelevant considering it has NVIDIA Quadro graphics, which give us a little bit better of a pass mark. So overall, I mean, at this point, we would probably call this an XPS killer. Coming in at $1,000, $1,500 or $500 cheaper, a third less than an XPS, 13 comparable. That's a pretty big deal. And so it also, like I said, has MX450 graphics running 2 gigs of DDR6 RAM. And so that's going to be a stripped down GTX 1650. It's the same TU117 chip. And so this one is running GDDR6 5001 megahertz, and it is the 25 watt model of that chip. So again, if we look at this nominally, we've got around 28 to 35 watts, so we'll call it, what, maybe 30, and another 25 watts in the CPU, so we're at 55 watts. It's a lot. So it also has a 54 watt hour battery, which should in theory give it 11 hours. When I use it, you know, on trips or sitting in bed or, you know, doing work on the couch, whatever, I'm seeing closer to 6 to 8 hours. And again, this isn't, you know, oh, I got it yesterday, this is what I found. This is, I've been daily driving this thing for personal use and a little bit of work use now for 3 to 4 months. Every day. So it's got some miles on it now. It also has Wi-Fi 6. It has a 2280 form factor hard drive. So again, we'll get into that. One side note is I tried to upgrade it. It comes with, you know, the shorter chip. I'm not recalling what that number is, with like the metal spacer that it's bolted to. I tried updating it to a 4.0. I was on the phone. It can't find drivers for the drive. Even if you're going online, downloading them, trying to go into the install wizard. Dell was trying to help me with that. They tried for a while, and you know, it was a 3 or 4 hour phone call with Dell. They couldn't figure it out. I gave them my BIOS information, and I haven't necessarily followed up with that, just because right now the 512 gig that it comes with is plenty of space. You know, I don't necessarily need the 1 terabyte, but it was a 4.0 drive. I put it into an external NVMe Caddy, and it was booting just fine on my desktop. So I'm not sure. There may be a BIOS update that's coming out to help that. We can probably comment if I hear back. Again, if you have this laptop and you've had similar issue, it would be great if you commented down below if you did find a solve, or if you think I'm doing something wrong. So we'll continue on here with just kind of the my observations now, again, after using it for several months. It has a matte screen. It looks great. You know, it picks up fingerprints pretty terribly. So that is kind of a downside of that here. I'm definitely one of those screen pointers like, oh, check this out. So better or worse. Backlit keyboard. It's great. You know, it's got multiple levels here. It's got a fingerprint scanner here. The fingerprint scanner is, I'll say, probably the worst that I've seen. You know, this finger is logged, and I would say it works about 10% of the time. So get used to your pin. It doesn't have any kind of Face ID or anything like that. There is some minor deck flex here, so you can kind of see. We'll zoom in, and then we'll check that out. The touchpad, large. It's got Windows Precision drivers. It's a plastic top, which, you know, I've got glass tops. My Precision is a glass top. Unless you're really looking for something to complain about, glass versus plastic really isn't a big deal. And then it's also got a function lock here, so you can adjust that here by, you know, FN plus escape, locks the functions there, turns them off. So that's kind of nice, especially if you do AutoCAD. That's, you know, a must to be able to go between your, you know, your hotkey buttons, volume up, volume down, and then being able to use your F1 or your F buttons there. So Fans on this thing, barely audible, even under full load. They're not going to annoy you because it does thermal throttle like crazy. I would happily take annoying fan noise and not thermal throttling. Speakers are front facing. They're right here. So they fire down. If you have it overhanging something and they're kind of missing the surface that they should be down firing to, it's incredibly quiet. As long as they're able to kind of hit the surface and reflect back up to you, it's fine. Webcam, decent. It's got a slide cover, which I think this is the first Dell device I've seen with the slide cover. So it's a tiny little bar right here that goes over and closes the camera out. It's got some cross-hatching on here. My major complaint is that the cross-hatching is gray, which is almost the exact same color as the bezel, so you really can't tell. Like if they were to have used a red or an orange or something like that, a little bit more vibrant, that would have been appreciated. And then the other piece here is that the screen physically cams the laptop up. So as you can see here, as you go, you got this little radius here. So as you put that up, it lifts. It's got little rubber feet here at the bottom. It lifts this up, provides some air. When I lay in bed, typically I kind of keep it up against my chest, and the exhaust comes out right from the top here. You can see that. And so by having it forward like this, it kind of chokes itself out. It certainly does run hotter that way. So you really need to have maximum height here in this kind of format so that the air can also blow out more easily. So some other features here. We've got the Dell charger. This is the 60 watt. This style here is new for 2021. This came with that. The thing takes around 24 watts minimum to charge, so if you have like a littler power brick or something, you can plug that in and use it pretty easily. 18 watts PD charging works if the machine's asleep. If you're running it on, it doesn't show up as charging, so that's good to know. Some other things I've noticed here through the, I guess, inadvertent excessive testing I've done here is some power banks cause a surge when plugging in, and so the machine actually restarts. I've noticed that specifically on my Goal Zero, which again is the most expensive power bank that I've got, and it doesn't necessarily work. If the machine is off and you plug it in and then you start the machine, it works fine, but if you don't, it overloads something and restarts. We've kind of covered some of the specs here. We'll start it up. We'll do a quick walk around. Some things that I did want to point out here are the ports, right? This thing is really, it's the fact that this has these ports and they omit them on the XPS and all the other, higher end models really is kind of a shame. So, I mean, if we look around here, we've got a USB Type A port. Whoops, kick the camera. So we've got a USB port Type A here, and so it's like a little drop draw. So if you pull that open, you can fit anything into there. It's got a standard headphone jack. And if we go around the other side, we have two USB-Cs and an HDMI over here. Both of these USB-Cs are Thunderbolt. That comes with the i7. And then they also, either one works for power delivery. On the bottom here, we end up with some cooling. The thing is a thin aluminum, right? Like if you're used to the build quality of an XPS or like an Alienware or any of these more industrial laptops, you will be disappointed with this one. However, some sacrifices are made at under 3 pounds. The thing is incredibly light, so that is kind of a benefit there. So let's dive in. So for starters, we will open up Cinebench and we can run a quick test there. So now we have Cinebench here, and then we're looking at our temperatures. Let's see where they are. We got hardware info 64 on here, and so we got CPU 0, our core temperatures here. So you probably can't necessarily see it, but I can read off the temperatures as we go. The current and the maximum is here. So we'll hit start on multi-core and we'll see what we get. like our maximum here we hit for CPU core max, we were around 72. And we had a rating of 4,120. So let's try this again now that we're plugged in. I don't know how I missed that. We should be boosting a little bit more. So let's try another start. And just so we can look here at our clocks, we were running 3.75 gigahertz at a base speed of 3.0. And we're already starting to heat up a little bit. This isn't major, but since it is going, we can pull out the thermal imaging. The base never gets very hot. The keyboard never gets uncomfortable, but there's certainly a strip up here, much like the, there we go. Okay, now the fan is quite a bit louder. But much like the HP Folio, that bar up at the top there gets pretty darn hot. So hopefully you can see this here. We are running around 130-ish. You can see there's a fan that is exhausting right here. And then there's a fan that's exhausting over here. So it is a dual fan setup. And then this is hitting around 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty remarkable. We're not thermal throttling at all. We're at 3.58 gigahertz. And we might be soon, because now our CPU package, we're hitting 99C, 98C current. So again, this should, I would expect it to start to thermal throttle. Now we've climbed up to 135 degrees. So it keeps going 138. And again, this should be the correct emissivity here, maybe even low. So we're coming in here, we're 98, still not thermal throttling. We're right on the cusp there. Oh, I guess it says core thermal throttling. We're at yes, but again, this hasn't dropped down to like 0.8 or anything like that. We're still running 3.5 gigahertz. We're 137. And still going. So on battery only, again, our rating was 4,120. Now that we're here, we should be a little bit better than that. Now we're 5,630. So we are 50% of that Alienware computer with a processor that's using roughly a quarter of the power. So we're pretty good there. Now it's cooling back down. If we turn this FLIR back on, we can see here we're running, we peaked up at around 142 degrees. I mean, 142, that kind of temperature is almost unacceptable for something like this. Like, no device that you're holding should be 145 degrees. So we'll stop for now. We will open up New World. You can see kind of the implication there where you start to see the CPU throttle lower. Again, you know, whenever I've done video editing, it's been doing that exact same thing. Anytime that you're doing like any kind of scrubbing, it'll, you know, NVIDIA plus the CPU at full load, it gets very uncomfortable. So, and I guess while this is loading, just to, to reiterate, this isn't just when you game, right? Even lower profile things like, you know, SolidWorks on here, if you've got a heavy model and you're actually doing like a lot of pans and rotates and stuff like that, it really does start to struggle through. So now we're here. Now this is with medium settings. We're hitting about 32 FPS. Right, so if we're running around here, it's still pretty smooth. We're at 25, 24. We've got, I think, a mixture of low and medium settings. Again, this isn't necessarily about how well it does with that, but it's about the fact that, you know, it thermal throttles in general. So maybe looking at a wall probably isn't the best. Go here where we've got a little bit more going on. So now in just the few minutes that we've been going here, we are already at 134. And then now we've dropped down to 16 FPS, 17 FPS. So if we look at our piece here, we've now thermal throttled down to 0.78 gigahertz. So, and if we pull up our hardware info, okay, so we can see right now CPU, the maximum is at 100C. So we are apparently not thermal throttling at this exact second, but let's see if we can see GPU temperature. We're at 69 and maximum at 78 degrees. And we're running 15 FPS. So if we click back into the game, I don't think we can actually, can we? I don't think we can have New World windowed, but we can go around here and see, yeah, this is 15 FPS, so it's more like a slideshow than it is a video game at this point. Is it playable? It's peaked back up to 30 FPS right now, but now that it's actually been running for a few, we can see here we're running 140. So, you know, we've got a gradient here. You can see again how the heat is really going up the screen here and here. And then your key deck here is a little bit warm, right? I can tell it's around 100 and, I don't know, around 120. I think it's seeing the deck more than the actual keys. So the keys themselves aren't very hot, but if you press down, you can certainly feel it a little bit. And then up here on the very, very top, this is where it really does get hot. So we're right there at 141. Again, it hasn't been running for all that long. Backside here, we've got 134, 137, 140. So, I mean, these are remarkable numbers. And just, I guess, so we can see kind of what we're looking at here with the laser. 134, 138. Again, if we look back here at our task manager, you can see we're hovering at 0.69 now, 0.81. So it is really there. GPU hanging out. It looks like it's swapped over to Intel Iris graphics right now. So MX450 is pretty low. So again, I've only opened this thing up one time. I can honestly say I think it's missing one tab as a result of that. So it isn't necessarily the easiest computer. You've got your Phillips screws for most of this. And there are a couple of them that are captive on the back. The rest are going to be non-captive. I believe this is one of the captive ones. Yes, it is. This is non-captive. This one is going to be captive here. Those are the captive ones are going to be your start points, right? They're going to be giving you some leverage to get open. So, okay, so we got all of our screws removed. We'll make sure that these things are backed out all the way so it pulls the back plate up. So there we go. We'll grab our pry tools. We'll just go around. Again, if you're really fighting this thing, then you might be doing something wrong. Work around slowly. There we go. Okay. So here is our system. So this is our heat pipe. It's a dual heat pipe design. This is, I believe, going to be your CPU here, and then this is your GPU. Because it has the Intel Iris Xe graphics, it's a much bigger chip versus this here being smaller. Here's your hard drive. You can fit, again, a full-size NVMe in here. We got a 54 watt-hour battery. Your RAM is all soldered on underneath the heatsink here. Your USB is part of this assembly here. You got your fans, exhaust ports, right here. And so, like I was saying, these heat sinks are just microscopic, right? So this is your only little bit of exhaust right here. And so basically, this entire thing just dead ends here. So effectively, it's the entire width right here, but it's only really able to exhaust out right here and right here. So it's incredibly thermally limited. You got an upgradable Wi-Fi card, and then your point cell battery for your CMOS is here, your 2 down-firing speakers. And aside from that, there really isn't really too much to talk about. So as I was saying before, the closure process is going to be just reversed, right? So we'll push around the base here, and then the last ones that we're going to screw in are going to be the 2 cam screws. So we'll start forward, and then we'll push it, we'll wave it back. In the 2 retainers now. There. We've ran through some, I guess, thermal testing here. We've seen what this thing actually does under load. Like I said, under normal conditions, the computer is absolutely fine. It doesn't thermal throttle, it doesn't run excessively hot. It's whenever you put a load against it that it really starts to have issue. So, you know, in cases where maybe you're doing Photoshop or some non-4K video editing, it would probably be fine. Anytime that you're doing any kind of AI learn or, you know, machine learning or anything like that that uses NVIDIA CUDA, that could be beneficial in short bursts. The CPU is really great. You know, if you bring in, you know, 100 megabyte Excel file and you start doing VLOOKUPs and your CPU is going to sit there, you know, computing forever. Having the 4 cores there, you know, for a minute maybe, you're probably going to get pretty close to your thermal headroom. But that's where, you know, that H-series processor works. It works for bursts of workload, not sustained. Well, hopefully this review at least helped some folks. Again, is this a laptop I would recommend to somebody? Yes, depending on what your use case is. If you expect to game on this, no. If you expect to do heavy video editing on this, no. If you're expecting to use this as kind of like a surfing machine in bed that can do a little bit of heavy lifting occasionally, and occasionally not being like, oh, once a week, occasionally means for 30 seconds at a time, then yes, I would certainly recommend this. I think that in terms of value for money over an XPS, this is a great purchase. The build quality of this, you know, there's very, very thin aluminum, but you still have an aluminum build. So if you're heavy on your machines, if you're abusive, if you know to drop them, if you're in maybe, you know, more of a construction environment, this probably won't be the device for you. But if you're looking for something thin and light, like I'm very serious whenever I say this thing weighs about as much as a notebook. So a paper notebook, of course, but it's incredibly light. So so if I had to recommend this, I would certainly recommend it to the right audience. So I hope this was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe, comment. It really helps the channel here. So as always, thanks for watching and check back soon for more videos.